Sam, welcome to the show.
Yep.
I am especially excited today. As you know, when we first met and you sort of talked me through your business and how it came to be and how you came to be sort of running that business, I just thought it was such an epic story. And I was like, we've got to get this on the show. We've got to get this on the show. So here we are, getting it on the show.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to get this one out there to people because I just, as you know, I probably meet 5 or 6 founders every single week all over the world. And we've interviewed, 70 odd on this show. But I loved your story. I just thought your story was such a feel-good story. And it's a story that shows what I believe is true entrepreneurship. And so I'm very excited to tell everyone. So without further ado, let's get into it. It's obviously your business, MYBOS. So for our audience, before we sort of go right back into where it all came from, why don't you tell everyone what your current business does?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. Really appreciate it. A bit of background around MYBOS. We're a SaaS company that's focused around residential building management and community management. So the platform itself, if you have much background around residential, or if you live in an apartment building yourself, there is an app for residents that allows you to engage with the on-site manager. So if you have any defects or maintenance or bookings, you can log it through an app.
Yep.
And then there's the back-end building management portal that helps the on-site facility or building manager manage their work orders, their assets, all the runnings of the building. It's got the 2 portals and the 2 really complement each other.
Which is cool in itself.
Yeah.
Like when I lived in an apartment, there was none of that. It was a phone call to someone who never answered.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's showing my age. But that in itself is exciting. But and you've just released, or you're just about to release the new version. You showed it to me the other day. It looks so cool, the new version.
Yes. Yeah. Look, that's we're hoping to have that release middle of next year. So we've been working on that project for the last 8 months, and release we're looking at around the May, June period of 2022.
Yeah. So for anyone watching, we're filming this just a few days before Christmas.
Yes. Yeah.
We're in 2021. I don't know how long before we release it.
Yeah.
But so you're looking at May, June. All right. So let's get into the story, and I'm just going to let you tell me because you told it so beautifully before.
Okay. Yeah.
Why don't you talk to us about essentially how the whole thing? Just go from the beginning because I love the whole thing.
Okay. Yeah. I've got to take you right back now.
Take us right back. Let's do it.
I guess, when we're looking at when I went to start my company, a lot of it really stemmed from my upbringing.
Yep.
And my lifestyle of how it was and how it went to sort of starting MYBOS and other businesses too. But yeah, this is going back. I mean, I was born in Lebanon, a city called Tripoli. Parents got divorced at a very early age. I was about 5 years. My mum had technically kidnapped me out of Lebanon.
Yep.
So it was a whole story. There was certainly some aggressiveness there. She brought me to Australia. We migrated here. Didn't really have anything at the stage or much. It was just me and my mother at the time. Yep. She then got remarried. And during that period, there was a lot of problems at home. Mm-hmm. And I eventually, at a very early age, ended up throughout my high school and teenage years, had spent pretty much my entire high school years at a youth center.
Yep.
As I'd finish high school, go there. Didn't really spend any time at home at that point, and eventually had to leave home at the age of about 15 or 16. Mm-hmm. So then I had moved out, went between friends, family, cousins. I eventually stayed with my grandmother at that stage. And she had a housing commission in Western Sydney.
Yep.
And pretty much lived in the garage. So laid out carpet, put a bed in there, and pretty much spent the next 7 to 8 years living there. So there was a lot of, I guess, disappointment in my family too. Like seeing, I don't know if you know much around Middle Eastern or
not particularly
Lebanese. Yeah, so we tend to have a lot of pride in our education and where we're at and what we're doing, and had a lot of scenarios in my upbringing where, there was one particular scenario, the gentleman that came over one night, and at that point I was doing cleaning. I was in courier. I was really just getting whatever I could to work. And this gentleman sort of came in, and I had finished courier that night. So I used to go over to my mum's to eat, and then I'd leave. And yeah, I was a packer at a courier company, and literally swept the floor with who I am. You know, you're not a man. How could you do this? You're at this age. You're doing cleaning. You know, it was really disheartening. Not so much to me, but the disappointment I would see in my mother's face. Like, she felt she was responsible for where I'm at in my life, and she failed me as a mother. And she would look and say, you know, like, this wouldn't be where you would have been, and if it wasn't for everything that you've gone through. And so for me, I had channeled a lot of that energy into wanting to really go out and start something audacious in the world. And so I had a lot of that energy sort of boiling in me. And there was a lot of those scenarios I would experience my mother or grandmother being faced with all the time. And so that started to stem into, I really wanted to start something. And so I was a cleaner at the stage that I got promoted through that as an on-site building manager. And I was really passionate in any job I take. So even as a building manager, I'd go out and, you know, buy my own clothes for it, or really wanted to excel in it, had a lot of passion and drive towards it. And it was at that point in my life where I had also had other businesses that I was starting, and I had a very close friend of mine, Omer, that I met through the youth center, and he had an unbelievable skill set in design. And so I was over one night, and he was designing what his version of a building management system would be. And I looked at it and I was like, Omer, this will go really far. And he's like, you know, I don't think so. You've got a lot of competitors out there and so forth. And I was like, no, I think that this is it. And so I was probably 21, 22 at the stage. And I was like, you know, I'm going to let go of all the businesses that I had. I had a security company that I started. I was like, I'm not going to move with that anymore. I really want to own this. And he wasn't bought into it.
No, I could which is bizarre, right? Because he's there coding it.
Well, he was designing it. And he was doing it as, he just had a joy in doing these projects. He would always start a miniature project. And so we were really close. And then he came around to the idea, and he was like, look, I think, let's do it. And
doesn't sound like you gave him much choice, but
Well, And so, he ended up designing it. And I said, look, why don't I take this and I want to go out to market with it and see if there'll be anyone that's keen. So I had this like unbelievable like audacity that I wanted to go out with this, because just seeing sort of that upbringing and what my family went through, and you know that history.
Nothing to lose, right? Nothing to lose.
Absolutely. Yeah, there was nothing to lose. And so I had saved around 20,000 at the stage, and we printed it out. I said, look, let's just put it on paper. Let's not commit any money to it at that point. And so I'd never marketed, knew nothing about marketing, to say the least. So it was my first time I drove to the city. Never been in the city.
I remember you told me you'd never been to the city before.
It was crazy. It was like a different world for me, you know, one-way streets, and how do people navigate around the CBD? And so I wanted to go to a developer in the CBD and present the platform to him. And got lost, chaos, found the big P. Parking, I was like, great, can park. So navigated in there, parked, and you know, my first shock was seeing the parking fees there.
They're still shocking.
Yeah. I mean, my car at that point was, I had a car that I bought from the auctions, about $1,000, and seeing, you know, $30 an hour or $60 or $80, I was like, that's 10% of the valuation of my car. So I was like, well, this is how it's going to start. So let's get through it. So took those pieces of paper and went to the property, went up. I was in a suit that wasn't tailored. I was bold at the stage too.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing, So I didn't quite fit the look at the stage. Went up to the floor, went to reception and said, look, I want to meet was the VP or the GM at that point of the company, and said, look, I want to sort of present, I want to have a meeting with the individual. And she's like, have you arranged the meeting? I was like, no, I'm here.
Yep.
She's like, well, have you emailed? I was like, no. I had no idea, right? Email, meeting request, totally in the dark. So she's like, look, you got to email it to me. I'll forward it on. I was like, I didn't like that. I was like, no, I'm here. Can't I just speak with him right now? She's like, no. And she eventually said, look, you got to leave. Like, here's my card, send it to reception. And so I was leaving, and, those memories started to come back in as I was walking out. And I was like, I can't go back. Like, where am I going to go back to? Back to the garage, I'm here. There needs to be more. And so I worked as a security guard for this company years ago. So I had a friend in the company. And so I called the friend, and they said, look, we'll give you the number for the VP, the landline. We can't give you the mobile, so don't share it with anyone. Here I am on a podcast sharing.
It's okay. It was years ago.
Okay, yes.
Are we going to talk about who it is yet? Or we'll save that?
Yes, we will. Because so I got the number.
Yep.
I called the landline, and I think at that point it really hit me where I was at. And I started to really shake. Like this was a company valued over $15 billion. So I wasn't going to some.
First sales call.
Yeah, this is the first sales call. So I'm going to the top. And, I was calling and my heart was pounding. And
so you're calling the VP of a company worth $15 billion?
Yes. Yeah.
As your first sales call?
My first sales call.
From the car park?
In the lobby downstairs. Lobby. Yes. So he answered. And I stumbled.
What were the chances of that?
Yeah, and I don't remember what I said. And I mumbled a lot, I stumbled, and I told him I'm downstairs, and he's like, look, come right up. It's like, really? He's like, yeah. So I went back up, went to reception, the shock on her face.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And she goes, yeah, she called him, and she's like, yeah, mate, let him wait. So I presented to the VP at that point.
Your printouts, basically.
Printouts, pretty much. Sat with him and went through every page. And you'd be going back, 10, so I'd say 2012.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
about 10 years ago.
10 years.
Yeah.
10 years. Yeah, correct. So
there weren't many people doing printout presentations 10 years ago.
Yeah.
30 years ago, but not.
So yeah, it was and he loved it. He goes, at that point he told me, look, if you turn this to code, like this is going to go far for you. And for me, it was just, I knew they weren't going to take it on, but it was that tick. Validation. Yeah. Really what it was. And the company was Meriton.
So, love it.
Went straight up to Meriton.
Can you remember the name of the VP? Or maybe we shouldn't say that.
Probably, yeah.
But I mean, I still find that astounding that you go into Meriton's headquarters. Obviously, there's no way they're letting you in.
Yeah.
And then you somehow, just through or just circumstances, right? Having worked there as a security guard, get a landline number, call a landline number. No one ever answers landline numbers. He answers, then he lets you up. So what went on from then? So obviously, you presented to him.
Yeah, of course.
You liked it.
He liked it. He said, look, he ended up introducing me to a few other companies. And to me, it was that validation. Like, let's now use that money that I had to inject it into the platform. And at that point, freelancer.com was starting to pick up momentum.
And when you say money, you're talking about the 20 grand you've
20 grand, I say.
So he didn't give you anything other than some intros, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, correct. That's right. So we found a company that offshored developments in Sydney. Yep. Gave him about $15,000. Product did not work.
Perfect. Big chunk of your 20 grand gone there.
It was gone.
So when you say didn't work, like totally not work, like scrap it, throw it away, or just
I'd say it needed a lot of the functions didn't work. So what they promised us they could deliver wasn't delivered. And I was at a point where we didn't have much money left to really inject into the business.
How was Omar feeling at this stage?
It was both disheartened, but there's not much you could really do. And, and we saw Freelancer come up and we ended up, sourcing some developers overseas.
Yep.
Phenomenal developers, and their rates were off the charts. So,
amazing. Which country?
I went to a few. I had in Vietnam, I had in Belgium, I had the US.
Okay, cool.
It was a bit all over, and sort of we were finding developers that had particular talents in different areas of coding. So that 5,000 was able to take us pretty far for that first version build. And then from then on, the business continued to grow. And it was, at that point, the marketing was pretty much, didn't have really still much investment to put behind it. So I had just printed out brochures at the stage, printed out, I think about 5,000 to 10,000 brochures, and I would sit on Google. It's a lot of brochures. Yeah,
it's a lot of brochures.
How else are you going to market?
That's old school. I love it.
It was very old school.
Your printer was running hot this time.
Well, this time I went to a company to print them out. And yeah, I would map out the CBD and I would do street by street by street. I would door knock every single building within Sydney, introduce myself. Had some really difficult, a lot of rejections. I'd say nearly every intro was a rejection. I never had anyone that said, I love it from the beginning. And yeah, there were a lot of challenges in that. I mean, there was probably one story that I haven't really shared much. Even with the beginning, I haven't really went public with
this is your time.
Yeah, I haven't. And there was probably one scenario when I had done those printouts in Piedmont, out there distributing brochures, and a manager approached me and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I introduced myself, and he was looking at it and he's like, "Look, can you stop what you're doing?" And I told him, "Well, would you be interested?" And he's like, "No, I'm not, like, just leave." And I go, "Well, why don't you have a look at it, right?" And he's like, "I'm just not interested. Not how you do business. You don't do letter drop boxes." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm sorry, but can I at least get your card?" And he was like, "No, I'm not interested. Just leave the building." And so I left, and it was raining that day. It was gushing down rain. So it was in the middle of winter, had maybe a couple of hundred brochures with me. And I was like, "You know what? I'm going to go back in. I'm just going to continue the letter drop boxes." And he came back out. He's like, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Didn't I tell you to stop?" I mean, in hindsight, I should have stopped, but I was like, I just want to keep going because maybe there's a resident in there that might like what we're doing and might be interested. And he got aggressive and he literally pinned me on the wall, put me in a headlock.
Put you in a headlock?
Yeah, put me in a headlock and threw me out. And I dropped all the brochures.
Oh, no.
And it was like, it was really bad. I felt so disheartened and broken at that.
How do you cope with that sort of, I mean, all that rejection, as you said, nearly everybody rejected you. So let's say you've been doing, I don't know how long you were doing it by that stage, but let's say you've been through even a week, maybe it'd been 4 weeks, I don't know. And then someone sticks you in a headlock and throws you out on the street. How do you keep going? Where does the resolve, where does that come from?
I'd say it's like you mentioned earlier, you got nothing else to lose. I mean, I was at rock bottom.
Yeah.
This is it. I need to make this work. I got no real other option. And the only thing I've got are these brochures and I need to make this work. And I didn't want to go back to where I was. So it was that proving to my family and myself that I can do this. And I know I didn't have all the resources and revenue at the point, but you make way and life will give you, and you learn a lot through those challenges and it builds a different being internally because after that rejection, I spent 6 hours that day. It was from 12 to 6, putting a letter drop box nearly every apartment in Piedmont. And the calls I got the next morning about how much the streets were flooded wasn't a good call. I had a lot of residents call me, but you just got to keep going. I didn't want to go back. And there was that endless resentment. Just couldn't stop. And so the business continued to grow. And it was through those door knocks, the flights, and then I started doing exhibitions and people started to come and move forward with the brand. And I think a lot of them were excited by the journey or seeing what I was willing to do to make this work.
Do you think there was a key turning point or was it just a really slow, gradual uptake? Obviously now think about return on investment, people can very much measure, what they put out to what they get back. Obviously you were doing this manually, so you wouldn't have necessarily, but if you had to have a guess, for every 100 you put out, how many would you get back?
Yeah, I'd say it was a lot. Yeah, it was the grinding. I never really assessed it that way. It was like, you just keep going.
Just keep going.
Just keep going. And if you win one building, you win it. In the first year, my turnover was probably at that point, after doing all that, 15, 20,000 a year. It's really where I was at. So after a year of this and not having any other job, like that was it. But then the year after I had made a big break with a really big development, that sort of backed us, and it was just that endless grind.
And so when you were doing it initially, you said you're dropping it, you've got this system that you've built.
Yeah.
You're obviously going to building managers, you're going to developers, but you're also dropping it at individual apartments.
Yeah, I was trying everything.
So what happens if, say I was living in one of those apartments and I get your brochure and I go, oh, that's a cracking system.
Yeah,
I'd love to use that, but I don't own this building. How did that work? Was it up to them to then campaign the owner, or is that kind of the angle you were taking?
That's kind of how they would either promote it, but in Strata there's committees and body corporates, so they, hopefully one would pick it up.
You were literally banging on everyone's door in the hope that, let's say there's 40 residents in one building, hoping that maybe 2 or 3 of them who happen to also sit on the Strata Council were going to go, maybe we should look at this at their next meeting, which could be 3 months away.
Yes, correct. Yeah, that's right. So there's a lot of that.
That's incredible. I mean, that's a lot of. That's really covering every angle, right?
Every country, every state. So I did it in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Auckland, travelled overseas.
Went to New Zealand as well.
Yeah, same model.
Jeez.
Yeah, so, over the years, the business really started to accelerate. And then obviously the model starts to change as you start building your credibility, and we start building out different versions of our back end. And, I got to a point with the team where the 2 shareholders at that point, I'd say 3 years ago, we had a difference in where they wanted to take the business and where I wanted to take the business was quite different. And so they wanted to sell. And so I put all my chips back in and went back to zero, put all my savings again.
And bought it out.
Bought them out. And in the last, this is the 3rd year that I've had the full autonomy on the business. The last 2 years after I had bought it out, the business had grown phenomenally. I mean, the investments I was able to put into the platform in the business, it grew. We're talking 40% year in, year out. So it had some exceptional growth in those 2 years, and we're on our 3rd year, and we're hitting our numbers again this year.
You must be, because you came to me to hire some people.
Yeah, that's right.
But
that's right.
You know what I love about this story, I think more than anything, is that I read a lot of articles, I read a lot of books, I like reading biographies and that kind of stuff. There's huge amounts of talk about resilience.
Yeah.
And I often read these things and go, that's not resilient, right? And some of them, that's not fair. There is an element of resilience to them. But what you've gone through, and this is why I was so excited to get you on the show, is resilience at its utmost peak. I mean, there was nothing more you could do.
Yeah.
There was literally nothing more. You had so many reasons to give up, so many excuses to give up. And you just kept going. And to me, that is what as I mentioned at the beginning, pure entrepreneurship, pure resilience, pure, you deserve everything that's come to you because you have worked, properly hard. There was no advantage for you. Everything was stacked against you. And I love stories like this.
Yeah.
And I'm always blown away by people that have been through that. I was lucky I wasn't put in such difficult circumstances, and it just always so impresses me.
Look, when I was going through it, I never looked at it that, like, I always looked at it like, this is just how it needs to be done.
You wouldn't want to look at it properly, no. Jesus.
I looked at it and thought, look, this is how businesses, this is a form of grind and hardship that you need to go through with what I had. And I would work with what I've had. And I feel, I've just got that in me. And I've done well with that.
It's epic. I love it.
Yeah.
So where are we now? So what have you got now? You've probably got, about 20 staff now? Something like that?
I'd say we're close to about 25.
Yeah, okay.
A split internally in Sydney and also offshore. So it is a split between the two, and really looking at growing the team a lot more in Sydney and abroad.
Yep.
We've got a lot of exciting developments we're working on behind the scenes, which we're anticipating to launch middle to end of next year. So that'll be quite exciting to get out to market.
And you own 100% of it now. It's all yours, which is cool too.
Yeah, that's
you like that.
I don't mind that.
I can understand that. I can appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
And so, I guess for you, where do you see this going? Is it a business that you potentially might sell one day? Is it a business that I don't know if you're married or if you've got children. Is it something that you maybe pass to your kids? Have you thought about that kind of stuff? Or are you just trying to do the best you can every day kind of thing?
Look, if I was keen on selling, I've had a lot of offers. A lot of companies have approached me and looked at a full buyout or a partnership buyout. I've always had the grind and passion to run this through. If I I don't need to be here right now. I could have sold and made a lot of money on it and stepped away from it. But this is what excites me. It's the next part of where I can take this company.
That's cool.
And it's the challenges, like I haven't taken it to the next level. Like I've taken it to where I can. And now moving to the next phase, there's a lot of, there will be challenges and hurdles I need to go through as I evolve and grow, but that's what I'm excited for. I'm looking forward to that. And that's why, I'm not interested in the sale or just the money. That's never really excited me. And it's building the company and seeing, the next phase of where I can take it. That's really the excitement.
And I have to say, having seen the new, having seen the old version and you gave us a quick view of the new version, it looks very cool.
Like that,
It really does look very cool. So that's, that in itself is pretty exciting.
It is. No, I'm really, really keen to get it to market. Yeah,
cool.
It'll be really good.
So one of the questions, which I'm not going to ask you because it's a ridiculous question that I always ask is, it all sounds great. Tell me about the hardest thing. There's no point in even getting close to that question with you. So maybe let's reverse it for you because your story is actually obviously the opposite of a lot of others. Is what was the easiest thing?
The easiest thing.
I don't think I've ever asked anyone that question before.
In the business, like in what?
In the building of the business, I guess. Yeah. What was the easiest thing for you throughout that journey from the day that you first saw Omar building it to today? What was the easiest part?
I couldn't answer that. I don't think there has been an easy part in it. I'm like really thinking what has been easy.
Believing in it. Maybe believing in it was the easiest.
Well, believing in it was always there.
What do you think made you believe? That's there. Well, let's twist it that way. So when you saw this, Omar's essentially putting it on paper, right? What made you go, you know what? This is my future. And I'll tell you why this question interests me. I watched the other day the movie The Founder. I don't know if you've watched it, which is about the McDonald's story.
And
I knew it, but I'd never watched it.
Great
and
movie.
It's a really good movie. It's a really good movie. And what I loved about it was that he just saw this we went to this store, this hamburger store, and just was like, this is the future. I'm believing in this 100%, which I think was fascinating, his belief in it. You obviously had the same thing when you saw a friend of yours from the youth centre really putting something on paper. It wasn't even on a computer screen. What do you think made you just go, this is my future?
Yeah, great scalability in it. I saw an incredible version of scaling the platform, being a SaaS product, where I could take this.
That's very insightful for someone who's not worked in tech. As a security guard and cleaning and building manager. It's incredibly, I mean, I guess you were a building manager, so you had
that's
some,
correct.
But even so, that's incredibly insightful.
That's really what it was. Seeing that insight and where I could take it. And international was always the big vision for me, where I could take this business.
Where do you see that initially? Is there a particular region that you believe is?
We've done very well across Australia and New Zealand. We have a small portfolio in Singapore and in the UAE. But obviously the sky's the limit. You got North America, you got Europe, the product itself being an FM platform. It really is the sky's the limit. I think in most SaaS products, you'd find that. But this in particular, because FM is done very much the same anywhere you go in the world. So it's a very, unique, but...
When you say FM, you're talking about facility management. I was going to guess that right.
Yes, you guessed
anyone was wondering.
Correct.
Cool.
Correct.
All right, so tell me this. So obviously we're doing some hiring for you. We've got quite a number of roles on at the moment. Tell me, if someone's watching this, why would they want to come and work for MYBOS? In your own words.
Great. Look, I'd say we have 4 value points in the business that I'm looking for. One is talent, talented in what they do. The second is passion, really loving what you do, because that passion can't be bought. I've seen people that have the passion and people that haven't, and it's a huge difference, right? I mean, they really have a love to what they do. Simplicity. I'd say, being an ex-building manager myself and my customers, I have a very close thought pattern like them, and I love simple. I don't like...
Me too.
It's a big thing. I see a lot of complexity out there, and it doesn't work well for me.
Unnecessary complexity.
Yes, correct. So simplicity is and not everyone has it. you know, some people just like to be really
complex.
Complex, yeah.
I found women generally. No, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that. We might have to edit that out. Maybe that's just complex to me. But
I'd say falling in love with customers, because
that's a great line.
Yeah,
no one's ever said that before. That's an awesome line.
It's really important to me to have and see my team have that love to our customers, because that is really what's going to build out our product, and that excites me. You know. To have that connectivity with our customers.
I am so going to use that line. Yeah, I'm very passionate about our customers. As you know, I have a love of founders, right? And this show is part of that. But falling in love with your customers, I love the way you've said that. You know, there's delighting customers, but that's a great way.
It really is.
You know, I've always framed it up as genuinely caring. I really want everyone that works for us to really care about our customers. And I guess I love the way you put that.
Yeah. So loving your customers. And I'd say, you know, they are our value points that are engraved in MYBOS, but I'd also point out our culture value is really around well-being and charity. And what I mean by well-being is, we haven't concreted our events for next year, but well-being, I mean, what is really important to me and the business that I'm growing out are events that are, you know, activities or hikes or really family or cultural events that we could do internally with the team members. So,
as in their families?
Yes.
As
well? Absolutely.
Yeah, you mentioned this to me before, I remember.
Yeah, correct. It does mean a lot to me, and I like to see that in the business, and also giving back. Charity is a big part of the business. So I think, you know, if that excites the candidates, then this is a place for you. You know, I'd really put it around those points.
I think you've got some incredible values there as a business, and they're obviously coming from you and your experience. And I think I mean, you can see that with the story, obviously. But I think, you know, if you can create a culture around that, that's a pretty special place to work. Yeah,
great. No, well, we hope to get some really great talent and passionate people into the business, and really where the business is going to go next. You know, with our next version launch and all the exciting projects we got in the business, and I'm really excited to see where it's going to go with the candidates that are now going to be stepping into the business.
Absolutely.
It's really a big next phase to the company.
Awesome. Sam, thank you so much for coming and sharing that story. I know it's not necessarily something that everyone wants to share with everyone, but I'm so pleased you did. I really am, and I think this will, without question, this will be one of our highest rating
Well,
episodes.
I'm glad to.
I can't believe it won't be. So thank you so much. We look forward to helping you with all of your roles. And look, I hope you have an awesome Christmas too.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
Thanks.
You get a bit of a break, and I don't know if you will, but
well, not with all your roles on. No, I'm definitely having a little bit of a break. I'm pretty exhausted. I think everyone's pretty exhausted.
We are. Yeah, it has been a crazy year, hasn't it?
But to next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it. Thank you.